Welcome to the Sport of Politics with Joel Robideau on 103.7 The Game, online at 1037thegame.com. We discuss the local issues affecting you and the Acadiana area with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau. From time to time, we'll have special guests and always make time to take your calls. Now, time for the Sport of Politics with Joel Robideau. Here's your host, Dave Schultz.
All right, welcome to the Sport of Politics on Acadiana Sports Station, 1037 The Game and 1037thegame.com. Joined again by Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau. If you want to get in on the conversation, you're free to give us a call. He'll be happy to answer it. 706-0111, 706-0111. You can also tweet at us if you want, at Dave1037 The Game or at 1037 The Game. Lots to get to in just an hour. How are you first?
I'm very good, thank you.
Right,
how are you?
Let's start off with that. Hello.
That's good.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You're all fancy today. Got a tie on and everything.
Yep. You know, duty calls.
All right. So where are we with the budget? It seems we got a little chicken and egg thing going with the House and the Senate, even though from a $900 million shortage, they're down to $150 to $200 million. So they've done a pretty good job with that, actually.
Yeah, they have. And you know, this is pretty, typical of the process where it is a game of chicken. You know, who's going to blink, who's going to, actually concede. And right now the House is waiting to see whether the Senate is going to retain the cuts that the House put in place. And the Senate wants to see if the House is going to give them more revenue to plug the shortfall. And right now, neither one of them's budging, waiting to see what the other one's going to do. And the clock's ticking, and the governor's getting nervous. And we'll see if they come to some consensus before the end of the period. And if not, they'll come back after session.
Okay, so let's go into that. What happens? They got less than a week left to go in the special session, and then there's only about a long weekend between that and the regular session.
Right.
It almost is like, and then we got the state got downgraded, which almost seems like they're trolling in the middle of negotiations. They can see what's going on, but the state got downgraded from the credit agencies. Tell us what that means to begin with.
All right. Well, you asked me two questions there.
Sure.
The first one was, what happens if they don't finish? There's two choices. They can either come back into session after the regular session finishes, which would be sometime in June, but they also could call a special session to occur simultaneously with the regular session. And the way that that's worked in the past, and it's only happened one time that I can recall, is during the Romer administration, you would actually do all your special session stuff early in the morning, and then you would adjourn the special session and then have your regular session for the rest of the day, afternoon and evening. And it gets a little confusing, but if they didn't want to wait until after the session, they could do it at the same time. And so I don't know which way they would go, but presumably, it may be easier to do it during the regular session because they're dealing with the budget right then, and wouldn't have to make the cuts necessarily if they were going to raise some additional revenue.
And then what does it mean for the credit agencies being downgraded?
The credit agencies, I'm sure the governor and most of the legislators and actually all of us would have preferred for the agencies to wait.
At least.
And say, let's see what they do. Let's see what they pass. But again, I think the rating agency's point would be we can always upgrade you back up.
Sure.
So they were just basing it on, the last, 18 months of history and weren't confident in what they were seeing going forward. And so they went ahead and made the call. So we'll see. I mean, hopefully they'll take us back up if the legislature comes up with solutions that they think warrant it.
All right. So what does that mean in practical terms that they downgraded? Is it a higher interest rate?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, in the simplest terms, it's just a higher interest rate. So next time, nothing immediate because whatever bonds are issued are already issued at those rates. But next time the state goes to issue bonds to build roads or to do some infrastructure, those bonds will have to pay a little bit higher interest rate than we would have prior to the downgrade.
So maybe actually a good investment for somebody if someone wants to come in and
for the citizens, around the country and in the state of Louisiana that buy the bonds, it's a good thing to get a little better interest. But for the state, it's clearly not a good thing.
Right, or a hedge fund. Is probably
or a hedge fund. A lot of them, yeah.
Usually, I'm sure that's where it comes from. All right, so there was the other thing that's concerning is the deep, deep cuts to education, which, again, I would say that is not unintentional, but that's what's happened. Usually with these things, though, when budgets get cut, they never go back. So this thing is getting cut to the bone. What, a $44 million cut to the education budget? I mean, what's going to happen to public education in the state of Louisiana?
Yeah, I'm kind of the eternal optimist. I mean, I still feel like there's room for the community college system to take on a whole lot more responsibility for educating folks, and they can do it in a much cheaper way than the four-year universities. But that being said, there would be a lot of restructuring that would have to take place, and I don't know who would be left standing. I feel confident, that UL would be left standing, but it would. It's a difficult situation. There's no doubt about it.
Now, is that just for is that money just for the colleges, or does that money include, public schools at the local level?
No, those are all protected by the Constitution. So the cuts, when we talk about cuts to higher ed and healthcare and education, there's two elements that are not protected by the Constitution. That's higher education, and that's healthcare.
So, do you think you're going to see some of the schools? It's not going to happen in the special session, apparently, but I don't know who's going to nominate a public school to be closed, a public college to be closed, university to be closed. But do you think that's going to happen in the regular session?
No.
I mean, that would be incredibly drastic.
That would be incredibly drastic.
Right.
And surprisingly, it depends which one it is. It doesn't save you a whole lot of money, and it certainly doesn't save you much money immediately.
Right.
So it doesn't solve the immediate problem. But it's not going to be a legislator that closes it. I mean, it's going to come, there's all these layers of government, the Board of Regents, the Board of Supervisors, all of those higher education boards would be the ones determining, hey, we're going to consolidate these universities, we're going to close this one, we're going to, change this one to where it only does, this, some graduate or the, pharmacy school or, so, they would be making those decisions based on the cuts that the legislature,
right,
puts to them. So, but, it's the threat of which ones are going to close, which usually changes the votes on whether or not those cuts remain in the budget or not. Because then the legislators are like, wait, then I'm not going to do those cuts.
Right.
If my university is one of the ones that looks like it's going to shut down.
Even though it would seem, what you're saying, more of an internal decision than external.
That's right.
Okay. We're on the Sport of Politics with Mayor President Joel Robideau on Acadiana Sports Station 1037 The Game and 1037thegame.com. Happy to take your call on the ropesoapanddope.com hotline if you have any questions for Joel. 706-0111, 706-0111. One of the things that did not get cut, and again, it's not a lot of money, apparently, but it's the for-school profits that's not getting cut from TOPS. And it seems to be only about a $40,000 a year issue, but it seems to be a perception as well. Let's see here. Real salt in the wound. This is in the Advocate. Private for-profit colleges with TOPS students will be safeguarded by the state. These proprietary schools like ITT Technical College, Remington College, Louisiana Culinary Institute, and beauty schools will get to keep all of their TOPS scholarships. Again, it's not all that much money per se, but that's a perception issue. If you're cutting across the board, you have to cut across the board.
Right.
Right?
Well, if they're going to cut TOPS, it would seem like they would also, everybody would get a little bit of a haircut.
Right.
But I'm not convinced that that's going to happen.
Oh, really?
I mean, look, but what do I know?
No, That's what I'm saying. No. You say that. You're not convinced it's going to happen. Folks, that's him telling us he knows what's going to happen.
No, that's definitely not quite the case. I couldn't have told you what was going to happen when I was there, much less not being there.
All right.
But TOPS is a very, popular entitlement to the middle class because it's the only entitlement the middle class feels that they get, and that big corporations and other constituencies get a whole lot more. This is the one thing they get, and they work hard putting their kids through school to get it. So it's politically dicey to try to take it away.
All right. We'll come back. We'll ask Joel more questions about what's going on here statewide and locally. It should be interesting. It's a good thing. I couldn't imagine if we were Iowa, right? We only get a week long of the Dog and Pony Show with the presidential politics coming for,
Yeah, afterthought. I mean, they're done.
Yeah, Saturday. And, it's even after Super Tuesday. We do get a debate tonight, though it's not here. But we only have to deal with the commercials for less than a week. So,
yeah,
pretty good. All right.
Commercials mean money, though.
Well, they do. They do. Well, that's for sure. That's for sure. So, all right. Stay tuned for more from Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau on the sport of politics. Give us a call on the ropesoapanddope.com hotline, 706-0111, 706-0111. We can take your calls next on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game.
You got the booty festival, yeah. You even got the...
Now, back to Sport of Politics on 103.7 The Game and 103.7thegame.com with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau. Here's your host, Dave Schultz.
All right, welcome to give us a call on the ropesoapanddope.com hotline, 706-0111, 706-0111. We're here with Joel Robideau. All right, let's talk about what the governor is doing. What can the governor do to call someone's bluff is not the way to go, but getting someone to act, because if it is a chicken and an egg deal, like you said, the House gave the bills over, but now the Senate are waiting to see what the House does specifically, and they've done a good job so far in terms of getting to where they need to be when you're at $900 million and you're down to $150 to $200 million.
Yep.
At least that's a really good start. Certainly haven't get close to the $2 billion for the $2 billion for next year, but we'll worry about that when you worry about it. Right. So what can the governor do here?
Really the government, I mean, the process of government is that there's the executive branch and the legislative branch. And so right now it's the legislative branch's turn. You know, the governor wrote the call to say what you can discuss and what's available. The governor, handed over his executive budget of this is what, what my ideas are. And after that, I can't say it's hands off because in Louisiana the governor does have a lot of power, but that relates more towards when there's a regular session. In a special session, the governor doesn't have a lot of the tools that are candy that he has during the regular session, where he can say, hey, look, I know this road project's very, very important to you and your constituents, and I agree that it's something that's needed. But we've got a lot of requests out there and a lot of important projects. And so, the legislator then has to decide what's more important, my position on whether to raise the cigarette tax or whether or not we get the funding and move up on the priority list for this road.
Right.
And that's where the governor's power lies. But he didn't really have that in a special session. Special session, we're not doling out the capital outlay money. That doesn't happen until the regular session. So really, the governor's hands are tied and just, I guess letting the legislators know that he's keeping a tally of how they vote. So when they do go to the regular session, he'll know who was working in his view in the best interest of the state and who wasn't.
All right. So what about the negotiating style of the governor? Do you come in with a budget that he knows is not going to be passed, but he's way over on whatever side he wants to be on, and that you can work your way up instead? What's the sales tax increase we're looking at? A penny?
A penny.
Okay. So why don't we start, let's raise the sales tax 4 pennies and work our way down to a penny or 2 pennies, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, a penny's, sounds like a little bit, and if we find it on the floor, and then it is, but it means $900 million.
Right.
If it's for a full 12-month period.
Sure.
So, it's a lot. And that's if it's a clean penny, because, all our pennies aren't clean, meaning there's all these exemptions and stuff that businesses get so they don't have to pay that penny. And that's the difficult thing. We talk about the budget and what we're going to appropriate and then how we're going to cut what we appropriate. Well, all those credits, exemptions, exclusions, deductions, all of that stuff's taken out before the legislature gets to debate the budget. That money that never even makes it into the budget But when those pennies were passed, they were all clean pennies.
Right.
And then over the course of time, people started asking to be exempt from it. And there's, stuff that was passed in 1947 that's exempt from taxes, and we've never revisited it because it's a 400-page booklet. And so those are the types of discussions that they're having now. But to have that during a special session and come up with a solution is a little bit difficult. So the penny's a big number. It's because it's the $900 million. The big question is the House passed it at 18 months. The Senate amended it to be 5 years, that it's going to stay on the books.
Oh, really?
So the negotiation now is where's that penny going to end up? Because the House is not going to pass it for the 5 years.
No.
And the Senate's going to demand that it's more than the 18 months.
Sure. Well, there's a lot of room to negotiate.
Right. So that's one of the things that's being negotiated. But the House has also sent over its budget with the cuts, and the Senate's not acting on it because they want to wait and see, where if there are any other revenue measures that are going to come out of the House. And the House is postponing day after day the votes on those revenue measures and saying, no, you need to decide on your cuts before we're even going to debate these revenue measures. So that's the game of chicken that's going on right now.
And I already saw that the penny that they're talking about, you're talking about clean pennies and not. They've already exempted large machine.
Yeah, machinery, manufacturing, and equipment.
Right.
That's right.
So
and they had to do that or it never would have passed the House, even for 18 months. It wouldn't have passed the House for a week, if they hadn't exempted that out. That's a big ticket item for, the biggest employers of this of the state to say, we want to, don't discourage us from going by new machinery and equipment. That helps the economy. So let's not do anything to jeopardize that.
Well,
so
that's true.
They made that one exemption. But, I just made the case in 15 seconds as to why it was done. Everyone can make the case as to why they should be exempted from it because there's some economic impact associated with it. And that's how you end up with all these pennies that don't amount to much because we've exempted so much, from having to pay them.
See, that's why 2 pennies would be 1.8
what
billion.
Yeah, but what happens with the 2 pennies is that you and I and the individuals pay the 2 pennies because there's no exemptions for us. It's just all the ones that have the lobbying groups that are able to go to the Capitol and get the them exempted from having to pay the penny tax or the 2 penny tax. So then you're just really sticking it to the individuals, and so that's why there's a debate going on right now.
Well, you'll just have to cut back your shopping at the Ambassador Town Center if it goes to 2 pennies.
Well, but we don't want to cut people's shopping back.
Well,
we want the sales tax.
Well, we want everybody to go. That's right. So that's why.
That's right. So there's a give and take.
Well, that's why I apologize. That's why I apologize when I went to, had to do Uber because it's cheaper than it is to park at the airport.
I understand.
Unfortunately. All right, we are on the Sport of Politics on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game. We're talking with Mayor President Joel Robideau. Okay, so locally, you had a bond closing. From the way you were talking to me about it, it's like you got under the salary cap.
That's right. It was we refunded. If people have a mortgage and they understand refinancing their mortgage for a lower interest rate. That's basically what we did with 3 of our existing bond issues that were out there, and probably saved a few $1 million, $4.5 million in interest savings over the course of the next 7 to 10 years. So it was good that we were able to do that. The rating agencies allowed us to do it because it's not exactly like a refinancing because you're basically redeeming bonds and then issuing new bonds at a lower rate. And so the rating agencies, when you do that, it gives them the opportunity to take a look at you and decide whether or not your current credit rating is the accurate credit rating. And they did all that and felt like we were where we needed to be. So there was no change in our credit rating. So it was good. It was a good situation. One of the instances where, we can do something to save money and it benefits us, for a few years going forward.
How is the search for a permanent police chief going?
That's good. We're going in front of the Civil Service Board to talk about the qualifications. We have a real squirrely qualification paragraph in the law right now where you had to be on the force by 1979, which means at some point in time you'll have to be 100 years old in order to qualify. So it was very nonsensical, very poorly written. It needs to be changed.
Right.
It's it should say something more. You got 25 years of experience. It doesn't matter if it was 1979 or 80,
Right,
whenever the date is. So, and that's how every other community in the state, they have some variation along those lines. So we're going to go before the Civil Service Board to get that changed, because you got to change that before you open it up to have people apply for the position to take the test. They need to know who's qualified to sit for the test and who's not qualified to sit for the test. And right now, it's college degree with 10 years, but it doesn't specify that the 10 years is supervisory. So, I mean, you could have literally some patrol people with a college degree apply for the chief of police. But if you have 25 years of service, with 15 years of supervisory experience, have achieved the level of major, you can't apply for the job in Lafayette. So, I mean, it's just real nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to go to the Civil Service Board, make my pitch, and explain, look, this is how I'd like to see it changed. It puts us in line with most of the other communities in the state, but at a stricter level than almost every other community in the state that I've reviewed. So we would still have some of the tightest restrictions on who can be our chief of police, but not this arbitrary 1979 number, and not just someone with 10 years. I mean, it needs to be somebody with some supervisory experience.
Sure.
You can't just have been on the force.
Are you guys using a recruiting firm for any of this?
That hasn't been decided yet,
No.
but I need to get the Civil Service Board to approve the qualifications. They then need to post for the test. We'll see how many. Then we'll advertise, and once we get to that decision. But it's all these different 30-day segments that you have to wait for public notice. So once I get the Civil Service Board to agree to make the changes on the qualification as to who can even sit for the exam, at that point I'll start making the decision on whether or not to engage.
All right.
Outside.
All right, let's take a break. We'll talk Clay Higgins when we come back.
All right.
All right.
And Trump.
Right. We could do that as well. All right. Lots to talk about on the sport of politics on Acadiana Sports Station 1037 The Game and 1037thegame.com with Mayor President Joel Robideau. We can take your calls next. 706-0111. 706-0111. More sport of politics coming up after this.
Back to Sport of Politics on 1037 The Game and 1037thegame.com.
All right, Dave Schultz, along with Joel Robideau, 4 in a row. It's impressive. 4 shows in a row. Ambassador Town Center may be opening next week, so we hope that you're here.
Yeah.
Or maybe we do the show there live.
We may have to. I might be cutting some ribbons.
Get the
over
good
there,
sales. Yeah, there you go. Get the good sales. All right, let's talk about if you want to take your calls. 706-0111, 706-0111 if you do have any questions for Joel. All right, let's talk about Clay Higgins. Very popular, viral videos.
Yep.
Getting people to Crime Stoppers and everything like that to call in and getting the suspects. He apparently stepped over the line. Sheriff said, step back. He said, no, and resigned. What is your reaction? What happened in St. Landry Parish?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably mostly what happened, but it, he's got this 15-minute window of opportunity that most people will never have in their lifetimes, and he created it himself.
Sure.
And the opportunities that he has in front of him right now are far beyond being the Crime Stopper spokesman in St. Landry Parish. I mean, he can go national, and he can do a whole lot of things. He only has to look to, Swamp People and Duck Commander and the Kardashians to know that, he's got a following right now, and he can parlay that into a lot. He can always go back to work for probably any sheriff's department he wants to in South Louisiana for sure.
Do we think that was a clash of egos there? Maybe he was more popular than the sheriff, and the sheriff didn't like being overshadowed?
I don't think so. I mean, I just think it was a disagreement, and I think Higgins has proven his commitment and his loyalties, and he's very grounded, and he felt like he couldn't abide by an order, and so he did the respectful thing and stepped down. But I have to believe that it made that decision a little bit easier because of the opportunities he has. Which I don't. I mean, he I don't think he really stepped over the line a whole lot. I mean, he was asked by the state police to do it. So I mean, if anything, you can look at the state police.
To do what he did in this specific case, or just in Crime Stoppers?
No. That last video that seems to be causing the controversy.
Right.
So yeah, he's going to land more than land on his feet. I feel like he's got a bright future ahead of him.
And do we think anybody's going to step in for him up there in St. Landry, or do you just not want to follow that guy? You want to follow the next guy?
Yeah, who wants to follow? Who wants to follow? Colonel Higgins. I mean, that's a tough act to follow.
Right. Okay, we're on the sport of politics. Let's talk national, because it's getting fun here in Louisiana. They were all supposed to come. I think Trump is coming to New Orleans. I think Ted Cruz is coming. And Marco Rubio was supposed to, but from my understanding, it got canceled, his appearance in Baton Rouge, as his campaign is sort of sinking, if not sunk. And meanwhile, this doesn't happen too often in the Republican circles, Donald Trump winning Alabama by a healthy margin and winning Massachusetts by a healthy margin. I mean, these are incredible. And he won enough in Virginia. So
yeah, he, it's amazing to me that the Republican establishment is fighting this so hard, because when you look at the numbers, and we were talking about it off air, in 2008 when Obama drew, the 8 million people to the polls on Super Tuesday, and the Republicans at that same time drew about 5 million.
Right.
And you look at this past Super Tuesday, the Republicans had 8 million go to the polls, and the Democrats had 5 million. So, I mean, a complete reversal of the number of voters that are energized to go vote. And, like it or not, the majority of the difference is because of Donald Trump. So he's bringing people to the party, and they're doing everything they can to cut his head off to make sure that he doesn't get the nomination. And it's just, and now they're going on air with, Romney, who, was less than the 5 million in 08. Right. He didn't even have those numbers, saying why it would be such a bad idea. And I'm thinking, it's like a magic trick. They're making the Donald a sympathetic figure. It's pretty amazing.
That's going to be interesting to be able to do that. Is there an issue that maybe the establishment on the Republican side seeing that some of the wrong people that Donald Trump is bringing to the party, literally and figuratively?
I mean, that's always been the Republican Party's, whether you're Republican enough or not enough. And at the end of the day, they should want to win those elections.
Right.
And if they're voters and then they're Americans and they have the right to vote, then bring them in. I mean, someone, they're going to vote for somebody, or they're going to stay home. And now they're coming out in droves to vote. And I mean, I don't think anybody's, you may not be in love with Trump, but he's not an evil guy. It's not like he's going to, do irreparable damage to America. I mean, he wants America to succeed and to be great in the way that he sees it. And we may not agree with everything, but it's just a bizarre world where you can have a guy that's bringing 3 million more people to the polls on one day during the election process, and the Republicans hate you for it. I mean, it's really odd.
Right. Well, I was going to say, basically, what happened over the weekend with the white supremacists and the David Dukes of the world and the RNC. And I personally believe the way we are in this country right now, everybody starts off, doesn't matter who you are, when you get to the finals, so the general election, you start off with 45%. And it's the 10%. People say in the middle, but it's the 10% who kind of decide the election. Is it 50-50, like Bush Gore, so to speak, or does it become, 52-48, as kind of has been the last two elections? Is the GOP establishment worried that 10% could go all in one direction because of the people that Trump is bringing in? That's why I would think they're doing it. But like you said,
I would say part of the 10% of the 5 million to 8 million shift. I mean, that's the 10%.
Right.
I mean, he's bringing them to the Republicans.
But but they're only, for the most part, they're only Republicans voting. Now, there are some states that it's an open primary.
It's definitely that. But either there were Republicans that sat at home and didn't vote, so now your 45 may not be 45, it may be 47 or 8,
right?
Because he's got millions more that are actually energized to go vote, and so you don't need 5 of the 10% that you're talking about. You only need 2.5% to get over the 50. So it's just a very weird. If it was anybody else,
right?
Literally, well, maybe not Cruz because the establishment hates him too.
Right.
But if it was anyone other than those two, I mean, that's all you would hear from the party is about how dominating a presence this is and how wonderful it is for the party that all of these folks are energized and going out to vote. But because it's somebody that they don't view as part of the establishment, they're doing everything they can to wreck the campaign.
Now, do you think it could be entertaining when we get to the convention, that it could be a brokered convention?
Oh, it's going to be entertaining regardless of whether it's a brokered convention. I mean, if Trump's in there, it's going to be entertaining. So, he's got the establishment standing on its head right now. I mean, they don't know what to do, and we'll see. I mean, there's still a lot of big, Illinois, New York, Florida. There's still a lot of big populations out there to vote, but I just don't see, anybody other than Trump and Cruz dominating those elections.
Well, it is interesting. You bring up Romney. He's coming out against Trump, but I do think some evangelicals sat home, and, we don't want to – well, we're going to talk about it because that's what it is. They sat home because Romney's Mormon.
Yep.
And yet, he can say he's religious and goes to church, but there's probably there's not been a least less religious person running for president in recent history than Donald Trump. And he's still winning the evangelicals, despite, a little philandering in the past. Third marriage. They don't have an issue with that.
They don't seem to. I mean, he's holding his own. And I think the thought process was that Cruz was going to absolutely dominate with the evangelical vote, and Trump's getting more than his fair share of that vote. So, I just don't see how. I don't see what path. I don't see having Romney going on air. I don't see what they do to derail it. It's going to be one of those two guys.
All right, we'll come back and talk about this a little bit more. It's interesting. They're trying to get Trump to release his tax returns. They still haven't asked him, do you have any money in Switzerland or in the islands? That's got to be coming next, right? That's kind of what brought Romney down when they said, we're not going to release any more tax returns. That hasn't come up yet. I would be surprised if Donald doesn't. I wouldn't blame him if he does, but when you want to run for president, it doesn't look particularly good.
Yeah, it's not gonna affect Trump.
Well, not GOP-wise. No, not in the GOP. All right, we'll do more sport and politics. You can give us a call, 706-0111, 706-0111. Mayor Joel coming back after this on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game.
Now, back to Sport of Politics on 103.7 The Game and 1037thegame.com with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau. Here's your host, Dave Schultz.
All right, Dave Schultz along with Mayor President Joel Robideau on Acadiana Sports Station 1037 The Game and 1037thegame.com. You wanted to pass on a little information about a job fair.
Yeah, right now, Lita and One Acadiana, I think it's going on right now, actually, at the convention center at the Cajun Dome. For displaced oil field workers. There's a lot of hiring that's going on in the Lake Charles area and some others. And so for those, those that have been displaced, and unfortunately it's been quite a few, it's an opportunity to go and get in front of a lot of recruiters, and they're looking to hire. So, it may be a temporary thing for you, but if you need it, then I would certainly encourage you to go. And I appreciate Lita and One Acadiana's efforts at putting this together. Because it's needed, and at the end of the day, quality of life and all of that's great, but having a job and being able to take care of your family is what we care about more than anything else. So there's an opportunity today, 9 to 1, I think is what it is. Yeah, at the Cajun Dome Convention Center. So I encourage anybody that is in that position to head over there and to hopefully things will work out for you.
Has the community, I know individuals obviously have, but have we felt it community-wide yet in terms of the layoffs and the gas prices, which all of a sudden have taken about a 20% jump, which is obviously good for the overall economy? Has the community felt that, the loss of jobs?
It's starting to feel it. I think, the longer it goes, and I don't know when that is going to end, but at some point we're going to really begin to see a lot more houses on the market, and we're going to see, bigger decline in sales tax and then property taxes if there's houses on the market and they're not selling. So we're bracing for it. We're preparing for the worst, but staying optimistic that we're going to weather this storm like we did all the other ones. Actually, probably better than we did all the other ones because, once you've been through it a few times, tighten our belts where we need to. And then things like this job fair. I mean, if we can get folks, it's certainly not an ideal situation if they're having to commute and do those types of things. But if it allows people to stay and last and hang around here a little bit longer until things do turn around in the oil field, then that's the ideal situation, or that's as good a situation as we can have, faced with all the layoffs that's occurring.
I mean, just to have a job fair, if they're having a job fair,
that means there's
jobs somewhere, right?
That's right, exactly.
Right? They wouldn't be wasting their time.
That's right.
Just to turn people away.
That's correct.
Think.
That's right.
So that's got to be good news somewhere, yeah.
And it's not a fit for everybody, but it is a fit for some that have some flexibility, and so yeah, please take advantage of that and go check it out. You may be surprised at some of the opportunities that are out there.
I think my boy Nick commutes to Lake Charles every day.
Yeah,
his job is out there.
Quite a few folks do. Yeah.
He takes Sports Chat with him all the way down to Lake Charles for as long as it goes. Almost all the way, probably. All right, I-49. Any update with the corridor?
We had a couple of really good meetings with the Fed and the state, and those are ongoing, and so we're getting closer to the rollout where we're going to get into the communities and start getting that input. But the Feds have been really excited about the prospects of moving this project forward, and more importantly for me, moving it forward in a way that benefits the community and actually allows us to reconnect a lot of parts of the community that were disconnected when the Evangeline Thruway was put through here. So a lot of good things happening, but again, we need community input to make sure that we do it in a way that makes sense for everybody. And so those meetings are going to be happening soon. They'll be announced, and we'll be going knocking on doors and setting up little neighborhood meetings to get the input. So I like the ideas that are coming out, talking about, elevated interstate the whole way so that you've got all these connectors underneath and, done in really cool ways that helps differentiate us from the rest of the nation in the way that it's been done in the past. And at the same time, highlighting our cultural history and who we are and becoming actually an attraction for visitors. And so a lot of good ideas coming out there. We're a pretty creative community, and so we're getting some really good ideas.
How far would the corridor go?
The corridor, as we talk about it, is basically from I-10 to the airport.
Oh,
that's
okay.
the 49. That's called the Lafayette corridor.
Okay.
I-49 would obviously continue on after that because north of that it's pretty much completed. It's interstate. Yeah. It's south of that the I-49 south. It remains to be completed, but one big component of that is the I-49 connector through Lafayette, and that's what we're talking about, and that's what we're trying to get input on and make sure we do it right and in a way that benefits us for decades and decades. And so the connector project is where when you hear about the Tiger Grant and all of that, that's federal money that's allowing us to go in and meet with folks and get their ideas and get their input and then turn it back into the federal government, to the State Department of Transportation to say, all right, here's what the public wants to see happen. And then those guys go in and do all the technical analysis and figure out what can be done and how much it costs and then move forward with the project.
It seemed there would almost be two parts, from Pinhook to the airport and then from I-10 to Pinhook.
Yeah, I-10 to Pinhook is, it's really probably viewed in about 4 different sections.
Oh, that's 4
from there.
Sections. Okay.
So Pinhook to the airport is one. I-10 to Willow, which is a pretty short stretch,
right,
is another. Willow through the downtown area is one, and then from the downtown to Pinhook, and we view them as that because different neighborhoods, Macomb, Visay, Sterling, Truman, all of those are affected by these different sections.
Right.
And so So we're going to approach the neighborhood and say, all right, in your neighborhood, what would y'all like to see happen? What would allow for the best connection from both sides of the interstate? And so we're kind of approaching it with that mindset.
All right. So what about some of the projects that are near and dear to your heart? To begin with, the Verrett Road School project.
Right.
Good.
The state's moving forward on that, and that's continuing. I don't think we've done any kind of official ribbon cutting.
Right.
But like I think we had said on one of the previous shows, anybody that's driving on Verrett sees the work that's being done, and so that project's moving forward. I'm still working on coming up with a plan for the University Avenue Gateway, and trying to figure out what we may be able to do. And then once I have that kind of finalized in my head, I'll then go to the state, because University Avenue actually is a state highway, and see what they would, what parts of my ideas or something that they are acceptable to them, and then start putting those plans in place. So, and then of course the animal shelter is another project that I have that's going well. We had our Target Zero folks came in, a national organization to promote no-kill shelters. They came in and presented. We had an incredible turnout. It was almost 200 people that showed up, on a Wednesday night for 2 hours, just to hear about the process and how it works. I've had a chance to meet with our animal control folks, and I understand there'll be hurdles, and that's anything that's good is hard, and so there'll be some hurdles. But I think we're on the same page. We all want to get to a no-kill shelter, and so that's going well. And like I said before on the shows, but it's going to take a lot of volunteer effort, just because, we're not going to have the money to be able to do some of the things and staff it the way it needs to be staffed. So we're going to have a very organized volunteer effort, consistent, not just folks that, want to, post on Facebook and talk about it, but folks that are willing to go give, a few hours a day, couple of days a week maybe, to help get this thing to the point where we are saving the money and we have implemented the stuff, and so that we can then maybe afford to be able to pay for some of the positions that we ultimately will need.
Now that town center went up, it seems to me less than a year. Where are we? And that's right almost on the corner, if not right on the corner of Ambassador and Cali Saloon. Where are we there? Going south.
Yeah, that development's going to be huge, and the hope is that our sales taxes will tick up. I know there'll be some shuffling around of money within the parish, but I think it's enough of an attraction. The Dick's Sporting Goods and Field and Stream is the only combined store in the state of Louisiana, and so I think we'll get a lot of folks from outside of Lafayette Parish that are going to come check it out, and check out the Costco, and check out all the other Nordstrom, all the other stores that you have to travel pretty far to get to right now. So I think, we'll see an uptick in the sales tax. And a lot of those places are all open up the month of March and early April. So a lot of them will be online and cranking it up soon. So we look forward to that.
All right, before we take our last break, let's go out to the ropesoapanddope.com hotline. We got Larry in Lafayette. Good morning, Larry. Thanks for the call.
Good morning. Joe, back to national politics. On Super Tuesday, Trump obviously had a big day because of the number of states that he won, 7 of the 11. Well, the way I look at it, though, is that 4 of them he didn't win. 4 of them he won, and it wouldn't have mattered if it was a 2-man race or a 5-man race, because he polled in the low 40s to the upper 40s in 4 of them. But in 3 of them, he won by like 2 points, 3 points, like 32 to 28, 26 type of thing. So I think, you could make an argument that in those other 3, if it was a 2-man race, he could have very well come away from Super Tuesday with only 4 of the 11 states. So my question to you is this. If it would get down to a 2-man race, who, in your opinion, out of Kasich, Rubio, and Cruz would have the best chance of beating Trump? And I'm going to hang up and listen.
Thanks, Larry.
Okay, well, thanks, Larry. Yeah, I appreciate the question. And to get Trump to 4 to 11, then you assume that everyone that didn't vote for Trump would vote for whoever the other person was, and that may not have been the case. Because, if it was between Trump and Cruz, then I don't know who some of the Rubio and Kasich guys, they may have voted for Trump, and not the other way. But, yeah, if you added everybody together and just assumed it's not going to be Trump, then, yeah, it could have been as low as that.
Or as you mentioned before, maybe they stay at home and don't vote.
Or yeah, there'd probably be some of that too. But I think if you look at folks that could do the job, obviously I think Kasich could probably do the job, or at least goes into the job with the least learning curve. I mean, he understands the process. He was there. I mean, to me, he's a real conservative. But elections aren't about who can do the job anymore. I mean, they want the president to hire people that can do the job. They want the president to symbolically be the person that that gets things done and kind of directs the country in certain ways. And I just don't see Kasich being that kind of guy. I think Cruz is. I think Rubio would be, and Trump is. And that's whether you like them or any of them or not like them. Those are the three. And I believe, all of them can beat whoever the Democratic nominee is, and all of them can lose to who the Democratic nominee is. It's just, campaigns are fought out in these little small windows. And so what's going on now in both the Democratic primaries and the Republican primary don't really matter, because it's when those two individuals are going at it for the real election, then it'll be a totally different debates. They'll be talking about different things, and it's just going to be how the personalities, work. So, I don't know. I don't know who can beat Trump. I mean, it's clear that Trump and Cruz are both anti-establishment guys, and the establishment doesn't want either one of them. So I don't know. I don't know that either Rubio or Kasich could beat either one of those guys in the Republican primary right now.
Seems like Kasich would maybe be a good spot if you want to be chief of staff in the White House. I don't know if he wants.
He could do a lot of things. I mean, he's very, very talented and knowledgeable.
All right, we got to take a break. All right, just about done here on the Sport of Politics with Mayor President Joel Robideau on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game. All right, Dave Schultz, along with Mayor President. Again, it's the best title. You got Commander-in-Chief. Only guy who's got a better title is the Commander-in-Chief. Then Mayor President Joel Robideau, wrapping things up here on the Sport of Politics. What's coming up for you?
Yeah, we've got all the grand openings that are coming up in the next week or so.
Yeah.
There's the daily grind of running government that I enjoy, which a lot of people think is odd.
Moves slowly, but that's okay.
Well, it does move. It moves slowly. There's no question about that. And but looking forward to whatever comes my way. You never know what's going to come across your desk. I had a request yesterday to put a hitching post in front of City Hall so someone could tie their horse up there and go to the council meeting. So
nice.
You literally never know what's going to come across your desk on a given day.
Well, Cespedes got a lot of pub doing that, going to spring training for the Mets. So you get a lot of pub doing that. All right, want to thank Mayor Joel for coming on again 4 in a row. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Alan Michaels Show is up next. Stay tuned for more on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game.